everybody. I'm Tamara Parker, the CEO of Unicycle Business Consulting. About 6 years ago, I became self-employed, and really I do this work because one of my core values is supporting my community. So a little about me. I did HR work for 26 years in corporate America and learned all the things I don't want to do for a living. And then I was offering support to some local small business owners who are dear friends, and they started having me come in for interviews to support them because I'd been interviewing for 26 years. And one day one of them said to me, we always did interviews, by the way, 3 p.m. Old Town, 5 p.m. at the Rio, to thank me for coming. And a friend of mine who had me do interviews with her said, over margaritas, when are you going to charge me for this? And that was the kickoff for me to put together a business plan. And Unicycle is 6 years old now, and I have a small but mighty team. And I directly serve 27 small businesses in northern Colorado right now. So today we're talking about interviewing for fit. As your HR specialist, that's my best advice for interviewing, is interview for fit. Interview for the intangibles, right? Because we can teach somebody our POS system. We can teach somebody how we want notes on our clients. But what we can't teach people is what we really should focus on most in interviewing. Don't get me wrong, if you're hiring a bookkeeper, make sure they can pass a test. I could not. I hire for a lot of bookkeeping places. So I really hope today that you'll let me have a conversation with you. I'm not a big fan of talking at people. So I'll be bugging you guys to please answer some questions or help me out. And if you don't feel like it, that's perfectly fine. I brought my team, so I have shills in the audience if we need it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the tough labor market. My company usually has between 8 and 12 jobs up at any time on all the websites for my clients. And this is a tough labor market. I had a small business owner say to me last week, well, I'm just looking for answers beyond, hey, there's not a lot of employees out there. And I was like, well, okay, but let's talk about business reality here, right? In theory, you can give me a job description, I can place an ad, and the unicorn shows up. So I want to share with you some of the numbers about why we have a tough labor market, because in my opinion, the reason we have a tough labor market is not that people don't want to work. It's that, one, people have chosen not to work, and people have died. So, since 2020, 2.4 million workers retired in the United States. 2 million women left the workforce and don't intend to come back. And 680,000 workers in service and retail industries died since 2020. So we're talking about 5 million less workers in the United States. So if you're wondering why we're getting fewer resumes, these are the reasons. In my opinion, it's not just women, but the couple million women who are not coming back literally did the math on their childcare. For the first time, they were not at work, they were taking care of their families directly, and they went, oh crap, after I pay childcare, I make $80 a week. Why would I have my child or my parent, because there's elder care as part of those numbers, right? So there's lots of reasons there are less workers. Please know there are still good ones out there. I meet them every day. I think we looked at my calendar one week, and I think I did 17 interviews in a week for our clients. I'm pretty quick. But I don't interview for the hard skills, I interview for the soft skills. So, when you're getting ready to think about what you want to do when you want to hire, the first thing you want to think about is, what do you want in that person? Some jobs require a lot of empathy. Some jobs don't require any. I mean, we'd hope for internal customer care, for team building, that people have empathy, right? But what do you need this person to have? And usually that's just our list of hard skills, right? This many years experience with QuickBooks, or a real estate license, and this many years experience in sales. Instead, I would ask you to think about the intangible things that you want in your employees. So I'm talking about things like perseverance. I had a health spa in downtown Fort Collins. She said to me, can my handbook be one sentence? Just don't be an asshole. And I said, well, that's not role clarity. We're going to need to find some role clarity here. But I appreciate what she's saying, right? So what's not an asshole to you? Because it could be different than me, right? So perseverance. I want somebody who's dependable. Does anybody want an employee that's not dependable? And what does dependable mean to you? Your dependable and mine might be different. So can anybody think of some other words that they want in an employee that are not about hard skills? If not, I have a list. But, no, crickets.
Step outside of the comfort zone.
You want them to step outside their comfort zone. You want them to try things they've never tried? Great, love that. Decisiveness. I love that one too.
Probably resilient.
Resilience.
Creative.
Creative. Self-starter.
Team player.
Team player. Thank you.
Self-motivated.
Self-motivated. Self-accountable. Love me some of that. Well, the good news is at the end of our talk, you're going to get 2 pages of my favorite interview questions. And after each interview question in parentheses, it's going to tell you what I'm listening for in that question. So that's a free little tool. There we go. Self-starter. Love that. So let's see. What else is on my list that we didn't mention? And thank you for talking to me. I appreciate that. Perseverance, grit, follow through, team-oriented, get it done. I like people who find satisfaction by getting something done, right? I love a good checklist myself, my to-do list for the day. And I want the credit. Like, I just love that little emotion. Feels good, right? So if you're like me, I'll make a checklist even for a cleaning house, like spring cleaning. I'm gonna clean all day. If I do something that wasn't on the list, I add it so I can do that. I want credit for walking the dog. So I love a good checklist. I love good follow through. Someone who owns their job. They take ownership. And something I talk about in every space where I work is that everybody in a company owns the customer's experience, the bottom line, the culture. Do we have a happy team? And if you start talking about those things in your interview process, it sets some really clear expectations of your applicants. Also, it starts selling your company. It sells this job. SHRM, the National Human Resources big giant company, did a survey and found that young people would take a $10,000 pay cut to feel valued and heard at work. So if you think because you're a small business you can't compete, you can. Last year at Founded in FoCo, I did a talk on alternative benefits for small business, because the things that my clients come to me with, and they're like, I can't afford health insurance for everybody. I just can't. It's a big expense. It is a huge expense. Let's talk about what you can do. What are the benefits of working for you? And so I really recommend in the interview process that you sell your business. You want that employee to show up on day one excited, grateful, happy to be there. And I don't know about you guys, but no matter how entrenched your team gets in little family squabbles, because that's what they're like, a breath of fresh air in an environment with the right attitude, the right grit, the right follow through can be your axis for turning your company around. So often for my clients, that's me. I show up and go, hi, this is great. And I do little management trainings, and I really try and inject that everybody owns the bottom line thing. Everybody gets to decide how much fun we have at work, if we have attitudes with us or not, you know, the right attitude. And so me and my team get to really breathe air into spaces. But a new employee can do that for you, 100%. If you have somebody who has the right mindsets. So I interview for mindsets a lot. Self-awareness. Oh, it's one of my favorite things to look for in a candidate. Anybody who's done any self-awareness work and they mention it, they're more coachable. They're more curious about their own behaviors and their own actions and how they show up in the world. Now, self-awareness journeys, different times of our life, right? I'm 52. I assure you, my self-awareness is different than I was when I was 30 or 19. Well, let's not talk about that. So I look for self-awareness answers in my interviews because if somebody's self-aware, they're curious about their own behaviors and how they show up and how well they are in this world. Are they a good human? Somebody else asked me that, a small business owner. Can you just bring me a good human? Okay. Yeah, I can help interview for that, but also, what else do we need them to be, right? So, my 3 favorite things to interview for are self-awareness and coachability. I also really like young people, not young people, any people, who were coached as kids. Coachable kids or employable adults is what I said about my children as I was raising them. Not every coach is great, not every coach is kind, but it's a different place for a young person to receive feedback that's not from their mommy, right? And they have to learn to take whatever feedback shows up and however it's presented. So even highly fallible coaches, in my opinion, good life lessons. So I appreciate that. It doesn't have to be in sports. I don't only go, oh, you're the athlete, you can come work here. You want to talk about kids who, not kids, again, we all had these experiences, right? People who are used to working as a team, getting it done, being proactive, owning their position. Talk to me about theater and band kids and choir kids. Those kids literally have to listen to everybody around them while they do their thing. They're used to working in groups, small groups, big groups. They're used to going, oh, I'm not here to paint sets, but I'll help paint the sets. So, love me some people who've done team things as young people and as adults, right? I like people who want to get involved in their community. If you have people who tell you what their volunteer experience, I don't specifically ask for volunteer experience, but I ask questions like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Stole that from my HR specialist. She asked that one a lot. My question similar is, how do you find satisfaction at work? So you want somebody to have some buy-in to their satisfaction. This is not just, I'm showing up here, you give me a paycheck, I serve the food, I'm out. You know, what's a good interaction for you? How do you find satisfaction? I also coach on interviewing skills for applicants, and so I totally want to coach so often in a real interview, and I can't. I want to go, no, don't say that. Say this. So the next important part of interviewing for fit is practicing active listening. So once you've made your list of what you're looking for in a candidate, you want to know what you're listening for. Now, I'm not going to tell you that there's some tried and true method. Here are the 5 questions, and here's how you identify the unicorn. If I had that kind of knowledge, I would be speaking at Harvard or something and making way more money. I don't have that. What I have is intentionality in myself and what I'm listening for. So let's talk about active listening and what we might hear. So I'm going to ask one of you if you would mind answering 2 of my favorite questions as if you were an applicant. Does anybody volunteer? Okay, thank you so much. So, Andrew. Oh, I'm not supposed to leave this box. Andrew, we all have words that we aspire to be as people in our work life, in our personal life, and I'm happy to answer this question for you because if you come to work with me, I want you to know who I am too. So, Andrew, can you share 3 or 4 words that you aspire to be as a person?
Sure. I think probably first and foremost for me is serving. I'm doing my job well when I'm supporting the others around me. I don't know if you can put a hyphen and do community focused.
Okay. You get as many words as you want. This is not a...
And then probably lastly is vision. For me, that's not only vision for where I want to go, but where I want to bring people with.
Thank you. So, does anybody mind sharing with me what you heard Andrew say? Yes.
It wasn't really about him.
It wasn't about him.
It was about everybody else.
So can we assume he's not a selfish person?
Yeah.
What else did we hear?
Vision, forward thinking.
Forward thinking. Yes. I would want to coach him to the why of the big picture if I were his boss. What else?
Probably thrives in a group environment.
He's collaborative? Yes. This is Sarah, my HR assistant, who was new to my team and so valuable. So by the way, I'll be picking on her to make her answer if nobody gets it.
Please participate.
What else did you hear, Sarah?
The second one was community focus. So it is about spending more time helping others, bringing the team up to your level of the vision also, like driving forward. You have no intention of being just you. You're going to invite a team, grow a team, or invest in people to be a part of it.
Yes.
The other thing is he used the word servant. I believe there is a servant leadership
That's correct.
concept.
Style.
So,
Mhm.
so it also tells me that he's doing research on the different
Yes.
aspects of
He takes his leadership style seriously and has invested some time into thinking about that.
Yeah.
I don't need to tell you, I can't say, oh, this person's an excellent leader. What I'm looking for in a 30-minute interview is have they cared enough to think about it. Thank you for that. So if I hired Andrew to join my company, I would always talk with him to help keep him engaged long-term about the vision and about how we contribute to that vision, how he specifically contributes to that vision. What's my vision as the CEO? Where are we going? I would want to engage him on the things that he really cares about. This is basically the same as a core values question. What are your core values, right? I really hate old questions. I'm not a fan. I actually said in an interview, I got the job. It was at AAA, one of my past careers where I was doing HR work for so long. If you were a tree, what tree would you be? I'm not creative. You mentioned creativity. In a creative field, there are different things that we ask, right? I said, oh, I hate this question. And I said, I don't know. I don't really relate to trees. My name is actually a tree. There's a tree in the Middle East called Tamara. So I guess I'd be Tamara. Next question. So annoyed by that question.
How'd they react?
They hired me. That particular interviewer loved frank conversation. I was right up his alley. He and I worked together for a long time. So actively listening. What are we listening for? And you never know what people are going to say, right? Let me think of my next question. It should be here in my notes. So one of my favorite questions is, tell me about a time when something was thrown on your plate and hijacked your whole day. You had plans for that day. You had deadlines, you're getting this done, and got your to-do list. Tell me about how you handle those situations, because there's not one job on the planet where that doesn't show up. And then you hear what they say. I've heard people say, I ask for help. What do we hear when we hear I ask for help?
Not self-starter.
Maybe not a self-starter.
That's
Or
not
not
necessarily
self-absorbed.
true.
That's correct.
They can be self-aware to know, and I would say less ego, because it takes a
Possibly.
lot to get out of your own way to ask for help.
Right.
What is it?
Yeah, no, here's the thing. You're both right. Right? Our perception and what we're looking for, and also body language and all that in that moment, right? But you're both right. There's no wrong answers to this. This is our perception, what we're hearing. So yeah, maybe not a self-starter. Maybe they need a team. Maybe they don't like to work alone, autonomously. If something goes crazy, they need some support or to feel supported. So I asked for help. I actually dug in on that answer a little bit and said, tell me about that. Because I wanted to know, did they freak out and go, oh my God, help, everybody stop, I have a problem. It's not necessarily the employee I want on my team. I mean, if somebody's bleeding, yeah, I want that person on my team. But I said, tell me more about that. And she said, well, there was this thing and this thing in this situation that were out of my scope, and I know I don't do it well. And I knew that Susan did. So I said, hey, Susan, this happened. I got to deal with these things. Can you help me with this one? Or how would you approach this? That's a different employee.
But that's the self-starter.
That's correct.
That's correct.
So that's why I asked more. And if you don't know how to ask for more, just say, tell me more about that. Right?
Also, there's no sense for you to spend a long time finding out some piece of information that Joe knows off the top of his head.
That's correct.
Yeah. So maybe instead of saying,
Yeah.
ask for help, you ask for clarification.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you really mean by you want this done? You know,
Yesterday.
what are the steps
Yes.
that I fully cover?
And I had somebody say, in those moments, I usually ask a lot of questions, and I know that can be annoying. Now, that's for my client, who's actually going to work with this person to decide if they like that answer or not, right? And I love an employee who's self-aware enough to go, hey, there's this thing about me, might be annoying, here's why I'm doing it. They have their own why, right? So, I had a thought of something else I was hearing in there. I really appreciate a candidate who knows where their limits are. I don't want somebody working, toiling away for 3 hours in an emergency, literally doing nothing that's helping that situation too, right? That comes with time of working with your team, and they get to know you and the business and prioritization and all that jazz. Go ahead, Andrew.
So how do you communicate that in the moment, right? Because I think one of the questions that gets overused is, what are your greatest strengths, what are your greatest
Yeah,
weaknesses?
not
No
a
one
fan.
wants to answer your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Or that you can't do something.
Mhm.
How do you create the space to let them know that it's okay to have answers to those?
That's part of a culture, and that's part of, I do start talking a lot in culture in the interview process. So to me, the phrase I use is progress, not perfection. And I think that lets the employee know that I don't expect them to be perfect ever. Because I don't, I'm not perfect, I've got my own flaws. Go ahead.
Is it a good approach from the interviewer standpoint to ask people to step back? Because when I hear that question, what would you do? The first thing I would say is, well, first thing is I remain very calm. Second is I prioritize, or second is I assess and then I prioritize.
Yes.
And then get help if
Yes.
necessary. But nobody ever starts with that answer.
Some
They
do.
always start with, here's the solution, here's how I would do it.
But I've heard in an interview, I'm unflappable. Let's talk about grit. Okay, grit is one of my favorite things for any employee in any job. I ask a lot of questions. You're going to get my favorite list that lead to open conversation, because I want to hear what that person wants to tell me. And I love a candidate who's been through some stuff. They are less drama in the workplace, because little things like somebody moved my coffee, or where's my yogurt? I can't, oh, here it is. People who've been through some stuff, somebody moving the yogurt from the shelf to the door of the fridge, not a problem, not something we should talk about, right? And also, these folks are underserved in our community often and not hired for those things. I met somebody who said, well, if somebody mentions they beat cancer, what's that going to do to my insurance rates if they get cancer again? Okay, not going to be working with you going forward. Let's move on, right? Somebody who's beat cancer, they're not going to freak out when the copier doesn't work, or when something gets thrown on their plate, or we have a business emergency, no matter how big it is. Unless you're in medical field and saving lives out there, there's not a whole lot of business emergencies that we really have to lose our minds over. Don't get me wrong, we do. I own a business. It's my whole life, right? But grit is one of my favorite things, right? So I'm assuming, because that's of how you would have started that answer, one, you want me to know. I don't panic. I'm gonna keep myself together. I'm self-managing, something else I really look for in a candidate, somebody who self-manages. And also that tells me, boss, I'm not gonna like working with you if you panic and freak out in these situations, right? I also highly recommend that you make your interview go both ways. And candidates don't feel comfortable with that, so I volunteer it. So when I interview for my staff, I say, I'm gonna answer every question I ask you today too. Because you're gonna work right with me. You're gonna be, my office is in my house. My dog is there. I'm not wearing shoes. This is how we work. Is this someplace you wanna work? And I'm this frank. I cuss.
From the first 3 minutes.
This is how we work. Is this a good place for you? So, especially in the smaller businesses, I really recommend that the interviewer answer all the questions as well, including the 3 words, right?
Okay.
Yeah, question.
I'm in my basement.
Yep.
My laundry is right next to it.
Yep.
You know, it's the same. We try to start off with a Zoom interview so that I can at least
Yep.
run a background check after that, because we're a landscaping company and I just kind of want to know who's coming into my home.
Yep.
Little kids.
Absolutely.
We don't have a shop on our house. The shop property is a separate location. But meetings, barbecues, checks, anything that has to do with administrative is in my home as
Yes.
well. I totally relate to that. So I guess I have a million questions swirling around, and I'm gonna center it into, so you're like interviewing in your home, so they see your home?
No.
You meet your dog?
No,
or
no,
what
no.
are you doing?
I do a Zoom interview first.
Uh-huh.
I do have a client who has us do a phone screening, a Zoom interview, and then we go forward. My final interviews are at Cafe Vino over a bottle of wine because I'm that small. This person is literally beside me all day. And I've built this company for 6 years alone. I was a solopreneur, right? So when you've put so much into your business, bringing somebody in who's going to be customer facing, I have to know that I'm comfortable with that person. And I'm not on day one. I mean, she came to me, she's awesome. And nobody can hire her away from me.
Unless it involves a women cafe.
Yeah. Don't make me get in a bidding war, but I will. So to me, that is so important, right?
So you're bringing them into your home after Cafe Vino and you've really vetted them?
Yeah. No, they don't come into my home until they're hired.
Okay.
She was also completely transparent. Like, not just what she wanted from me, but like the environment I was going to be in. How do you feel? Like, my husband works from home. He's usually there. He'll be bumbling around the kitchen. The break room is my kitchen.
Is my
table.
kitchen.
I was like, well, that home away from home. Okay, that's what I want in a workplace. That works for me. But will that work for who you're hiring?
Just don't touch the other.
Yeah. No rearranging the fridge.
Actually, I don't care, but my husband really does.
So what you're saying is instead of cleaning my house before people come over, I should mess it up.
Here's the thing. We generally leave our dishes in the sink overnight and do dishes in the morning from dinner. I have not changed that because I have an employee. First of all, I don't have time to change that. This is how we are. Right? At the end of my day, and I cook some dinner and I eat some dinner, not doing another chore at that point. We scrape and, it's not gross, but there's gonna be dishes in my kitchen all the time and that's okay. And if it's not, probably not a good fit. Right? Let me get back to my
Follow-up
agenda.
question on that.
Yes, go ahead.
Answering questions. So how do you balance, like, if you just say up front, like, I'm gonna answer every question that I ask you?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I enjoy about interviewing people is hearing the questions that they want to ask.
Yes. I give extra points for questions at the end.
Okay. So you do both?
I do both.
Yeah.
So I always allow 10 minutes for questions at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and I give extra points for those. And what's funny is, and I give more extra points for if the question is insightful, or they've done some research, they've checked me out. So we post all of our jobs under Unicycle, not under our client's business, because we handle all the back and forth communication and setting up timing and all that jazz. But the other reason I do that is nobody's walking into that business going, hey, I saw your ad, can I talk to the owner? We don't have time for that. We don't do applications anymore, so nobody's coming into the business and just interrupting the business or even calling with questions. I want them to call Unicycle. So I often am interviewing I've done interviewing for Unicycle 3 rounds total because I have 2 employees. When you do 17 in a week, none of them are really for me. But I love when people are like, wow, I looked up your website and your vision is so cool. And why do you need an excavation estimator at HR? I don't. And today I will tell you what company, in the first interview, I tell them who they're actually interviewing for in case they want to go check it out, and I share the website. But if they've done research on me, they get credit. Right? Preparing for an interview, I want to give them credit.
One of my first questions I always ask is, tell me what you know about my family.
Yes.
And it's surprising the
How many people?
silence that question gets. Like 1 out of 10 people has some kind of an answer, and 1 out of 100 has an insightful answer.
Yes, that's true. So it's always funny what we learn, and my website just relaunched yesterday. So it was down for a few weeks, and I loved how many people were like, I tried to check you out, but your website says private. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Was it with Fry?
Yeah, they tried.
Or was it with Fry?
No. So,
Can I ask that a question?
Yes.
So, in terms of like selling the company, so long time trying to hire, never managed to successfully hire a person here. But in terms of like selling the company, I feel like I have great vision and potential. And it's a lot of commitment to have that conversation and then hire that person, and then what if they don't work out, and I feel like I've oversold. Like, how do you deal with that?
So-
like the difference between where I am today, where I want to get,
yes.
are they gonna fit, and, ugh.
So I think part of it is setting also clear expectations,
Okay.
right? So I know Anne. So in real estate, I would set some pretty clear expectations of what their income is really going to look like and how long it's going to take and how long it took you. And what actions are you going to take to make sure they get there, okay? And then I always recommend 45-day check-in and a 90-day check-in for an onboarding process. Another best practice is write down what you want them to know in 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. And when I say no, I don't mean just no, I mean become proficient. Do you want them to be, blanking on the word?
Proficient is what you
No,
mean.
but what's the other one? Familiar. What do you want them to be familiar with in 30 days, and what do you want them to be proficient at in 30 days? And by the way, they should walk in the door with some proficiencies probably, right? So don't feel like you have to have everything familiar in the first check-in, but having even that clarity lets them focus their learnings, and I think being honest about what salary looks like, when raises are going to occur, when evaluations are going to occur in your interview process is very important. I am meeting so many people right out of college who basically think they get a raise every 3 to 6 months
Oh my gosh.
in a job. No, that's not how budgets work. Right? But by the way, if you'd like me to pay you less on day one, I can schedule a 30, 60-day merit increase, but I would rather source the right talent and pay you what I can pay for a year on day one. Right? So I'm finding that as a trend in my interviews that people right out of university are very, like we hire them, we get going, and we forgot to tell them that we do annual reviews and you'll be up for a raise once a year. And they're like, oh, so I've been here 60 days, it's my check-in. What kind of merit increase can I expect? We'll see you next spring, pal. I don't know what to say. So I think you really should talk about those things in the interview process. Probably third interview, not first interview, of course, right? But Anne, with your work the way that it is, these are the realities of real estate business, right? Very frank conversation from you in those interactions.
That's helpful, because I haven't really thought about reality check.
Yeah, people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
Could you talk a little bit about being coachable, like listening for coachability and self-starter? I find that to be a little bit of a conflict when I'm listening
Yes.
for fit, because
Yes.
being self-starter, self-motivated, sometimes not that coachable.
Yes. Let me get in my list real quick. Make sure. And then I want to do best practices, and then I should answer this question, and then we've talked about some best practices. So one of my favorite questions is, what unique combination of innate and learned skills do you bring? So, by the way, I do embarrass some candidates. They don't know what innate means all the time. That's fine. If, again, in that moment, if they go, I'm sorry, can you clarify innate? That tells me something about them being coachable as well. Right? And when I say, it's tell me about you. What do you bring to my environment? Are you fun? Are you funny? And then that usually frees them up, right? But with coachable, let's see, let me think of my words I'm listening for. What gets you out of work or out of bed in the morning, or how do you find satisfaction? I want to hear something about learning. My 3 or 4 words that I share in an interview are curiosity. I want to be a curious human and assume I don't know everything ever in my life. And I hear the word kind a lot. And by the way, it's not one of my words. Not that I don't want to be kind. I want to be authentic. Right? But you could ask a question about, tell me about a big personal project you've done in your life, and how did you approach it? You're going to learn about planning, but how much of a self-starter? Because if somebody says, oh, yeah, I'm that person. I've got 5 big projects going on, and I never quite, get to the end of those. So that's not a self-starter. That's a starter, but not a finisher, right? And those people exist. I was one of those people when I was young. I had a million ideas. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a visionary. I didn't have the follow-through when I was young, but I do now. But that could be something you could ask about. You're just looking for some time when they automatically moved on their own. The question about when something's thrown on your plate, that's an automatic move question as well. So we have 5 minutes. Sarah, would you mind handing out my favorite questions? My 2 best practices that I haven't talked about is have somebody else in your interviews, have another set of eyes in one of your interview processes. Maybe not your first one. And it can be anybody from your company, which, by the way, is a big retention piece. Employees who think you care about their opinion about new employees, feel valued, and they're more invested in helping that person be successful, they help to pick. So have somebody else in your interview process. And then to answer all the questions yourself. And to look for candidates in different places. So the Department of Vocational Rehab is a place that you can look for candidates. That department helps people with disabilities find work. Reentry helps people leaving the judicial system find work. The Murphy Center has an employment area that helps our homeless community or people at risk of being homeless find work. I have found all 3 of those demographics to be incredibly good employees. So what questions do you have for me today? Yeah.
I was wondering how you check for authenticity, because you're talking about how you coach applicants too about what they should say. So if I learn an answer and then I go interview for something, how does that person actually assess if I'm being true to myself?
I think that I watch the body a lot. I'm not a big fan of phone screenings. I like phone screenings for DEI. We move somebody through a process without knowing anything about their physicality. And so I do like phone screenings for that. But I like a Zoom, and then the final interviews are one-on-one in person. I don't want to hire anybody into a space without physically being with them. But I just watch the body language. You can see when somebody is disarmed and comfortable, which answering your own questions helps disarm them a little bit. I've heard 2 of the worst answers. You can tell when it's a rote answer. By the way, I give a little bit of credit for preparing. Right? If you're prepared with a good answer, what does customer service mean to you? There's always a customer service question, right? and you're prepared with a good answer, I appreciate that you're studious enough to plan your answer. But I'm going to ask you more things to disarm you, and I'm going to make you laugh a little bit in an interview to make you kind of relax, because I do want to know who you are. I don't want to know who you think I think you should be. So that's part of the answering as well. But you'll know authenticity when you see it. You really will. What other questions? Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the legality of asking a question that may be like screening for, oh, what's in your closet? Your husband and yours clothes, and you just got out of college, and oh, you sound like you're about to start a family. Maybe like screening. Anything that can be construed as like screening for age or race or marital status.
To be clear, we cannot screen for any of those things.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Got it.
But
could
also,
that be like,
do not take notes on any of those things. Do not write it down.
Okay.
Even if you don't screen for it, do not write mother on your notes, because frankly, your notes are admissible in court.
Okay.
Okay? So tell me about your closet. It's one of my favorite. Disarming. Hey, let's relax. Tell me about your closet. I'll tell you about mine. And I say, I give them a minute to think. And I say, I thought I was super organized till I got married to an engineer. I didn't think I was super organized. I thought I was pretty organized. And my shirts are separated from my pants, are separated from my dresses. My husband's shirts are separated by kind, and they have to be facing the door for some reason. And there's t-shirts and athletic shirts and polos and button-ups. And they're facing the door, because that's the front. And
That all makes sense to me.
and all of his hangers have to match. They're these black coated metal ones. I have plastic hangers, they're all the colors. Because one time I needed more hangers and picked up a dozen, right? At Target. His have to match. He does not want my hangers commingling in his hangers. He's here, by the way, so I'm totally picking on him in front of him.
Not that I don't want her hangers. I have to buy them out.
I'm looking for natural organization style.
Okay. I've just been told, like, don't ask personal questions. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, me and my 2-year-old all of a sudden. Oh.
I don't say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I've only heard one bad answer to that. And by the way, if the business owner is a neat freak and absolutely needs everything, like a desk completely tidy all the time, closet question is going to be informative. One person said, well, you can't really walk into my closet. I might be a hoarder. Like, it's to the ceiling. And I looked over at the business owner, who was a neat freak, and they were horrified. So I'm so sorry, we're out of time. But I will, I'm doing another session later on what you need to scale. I'm partnering with a bookkeeper and a CFO, and HR will be there to answer questions. But I'll be around today and tomorrow a lot. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.